Hello, welcome to a special edition of Student Connections on M6, your hometown stations. Today, we'll be meeting with author Tiffany Higgins and her husband and illustrator Clark Higgins. In their first book, We've Seen Santa, Mrs. Higgins tells a tale of what happens when two children yearn to see Santa on Christmas Eve. The Higgins' next book tells the story of the seasons. Its published title is I Love the Changing Seasons. Stay tuned to meet Mr. and Mrs. Higgins when we return.
I like to read because when I'm bored, my favorite thing to do is go and get my favorite book and read it.
I like to read because it is relaxing.
I like to read it because it's a good book for kids that don't really know how to read.
The Michigan Public Service Commission has a wide range of information available on its website to help utility customers make informed decisions. Everything from energy-saving tips and assistance programs to community events in your area. If you have questions about your natural gas, electric, telecommunications, or video cable service, visit michigan.gov/MPSC or call 1-800-292-9555. A public service message from the Michigan Public Service Commission.
And now, another adventure with Savings Man.
Oh dear, I can't afford that.
Charge it. You can pay it off later.
Not so fast, credit card guy.
Savings Man.
Don't let him entice you, ma'am. Credit card guy can lead you to big trouble. You need a savings plan.
You're right, Savings Man.
Get this ballpark estimate worksheet at choosetosave.org. It will help you get started.
Gee, thanks, Savings Man.
No, thank you.
So visit choosetosave.org and get your ballpark estimate today.
Hello and welcome to Student Connections on M6, your hometown station. I'm Charlie Donahue, joined today by Mr. and Mrs. Higgins, who are the author and illustrator of some very interesting children's books. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So, Mrs. Higgins, I understand your first book, We've Seen Santa, was inspired by your daughter. How exactly was that?
Well, it started off as kind of a bedtime story to try to get her to fall asleep on Christmas. She just did not want to fall asleep. So we were trying to come up with a way to make her afraid to stay awake, but in an enjoyable way so, she wasn't scared of Santa himself.
Yeah.
And so it became We've Seen Santa.
Oh, that's very cool. And I remember when I was a little kid, too, I was always so anxious on Christmas Eve. It was hard to fall asleep.
Definitely.
Mr. Higgins, how do you plan and coordinate the pictures for each book?
Well, I read the line and I picture what it's going to look like in my mind, and I draw it, and I take it to my wife for the final inspection. If we both agree on it, I move forward for the final draft.
Very cool. You have, working as a team, make sure everything's perfect. So how do you collaborate on your projects? I imagine, throwing ideas back and forth.
It pretty much starts with my lines, and then, like he said, to start the illustrations, he pictures what he sees.
Yes.
And then from there, it kind of turns into, well, that looks good to me, or is there any way you could add this? Or I kind of pictured it more of that, even just the little things like, well, I always thought she'd wear a pink shirt.
Yeah.
And I pass that to him, and then he'll adjust and change things based on my thoughts, and then it's back to his side of things and what he sees, and it kind of goes back and forth until we're both happy with how it final project
ends up. That's really cool, actually. So I understand you have another book underway. Can you tell us a little bit more about the plot of that one?
We actually have two.
Oh, okay.
The first one is another book like the two we've already got out. It's called The Monster Beneath My Bed.
Oh, okay.
And the plot on that one, it's really simple. It's the unknown, the scariness of, your imagination runs away with you, and what is it? And it's got a surprise ending.
Oh, I might have to check that out for myself then.
And then the second book is actually going to be my first chapter book.
Okay, very cool.
That one actually has taken on a life of its own. It started off as a story, the main character's a dog and a cat. They moved into a new home and they're unpacking, adjusting, getting used to things. Some of their stuff is missing. But recently it kind of started rewriting itself.
Okay.
And we've had some bullies come into the picture.
Oh, okay.
And we've had some rescuers come along to kind of try to help with the bullying. So it's kind of going completely different than I had planned. And I just follow along and let it write itself.
Yeah, and it's, the whimsicalness of, the writing. It's very cool. So, Mrs. Higgins, how do you develop the plot and characters in each book?
For me, it's more they develop themselves.
Okay.
I follow my stories and let them tell me what to write. I don't know if, there's times I swear I seriously hear them just talking in my head and arguing, and I write what they tell me to write.
The inspiration just comes, you can never really, understand. So do you work from your home, and is this like your full career title?
Yes, we both work from home, and
Okay.
this is what we do, so.
Very cool. So can you tell us the process involved in publishing the book and how you select a publisher or an editor and just kind of the whole process with that?
It's kind of been different. With We've Seen Santa, we had an actual publisher.
Okay.
I submitted to countless publishers, a lot of rejection letters.
Fortunately.
Eventually, we found one that was interested, and we published through them. They took a lot of my freedom away. They wanted to change things that I didn't want to change, and it didn't come out quite how we pictured it.
Yeah.
So with the second book, we are actually self-publishing. We did everything on our own, from the editing to putting it together, the whole 9 yards. The second book is all ours, so much more freedom in that.
Oh yes, definitely. So how did you both get involved with Gardens Elementary School?
It started with letters. I sent out letters to all the local elementary schools, and gosh, it was the end of last school year, like right before everybody went on vacation, that I got a letter back, and we spent months planning our visit for right before Christmas.
Okay.
And we went up there, and they were just so wonderful.
That's great.
We were so impressed with all of the students there. They were just like so well behaved, and
they were enthusiastic and had amazing questions. And
questions we wouldn't have even thought of. It was like you
so
don't
cool.
expect these elementary school students to have so many, like, how can I get published and what can I do?
That's so cool.
Some of their questions just totally blew our minds.
That's so neat too, just the way that those children you just never expect with, where their imagination will take them. So do you encourage young students to become authors and illustrators as well?
Oh, definitely. I actually wrote and illustrated my first book in first grade.
Oh, wow.
Which I brought with when we did our visit back before Christmas. It's not much. I've never been good at drawing or coloring. I've always been, I guess, a messy artist. But it's still, it was what started it for me. It was, I wanted to go from that book that I made with my teacher in my class to having something that was really out there for everybody with my name on it. So my dream started very young, and so I definitely encourage all of the little ones to follow whatever their dream may be.
Oh yeah, that's really cool too, the way, just being little like that. So what is the best part of meeting with your young readers?
Just as much inspiration as they gave us. I mean, we went in there wanting to inspire them to follow their dreams, and in turn they inspired us to really broaden our horizons and try out new things to keep it as exciting for them as it is for us.
That's so cool, yeah, because you just never expect it, when you go in there, and it's very cool. So do you have any advice for people that may be interested in following such a career pathway?
The big thing is stick with it. It's frustrating at times. You feel like it's time to give up. You just got to let it go. It's not happening.
Yeah.
And if you can work through those, whether it's the writer's block or problems with your publisher or anything, if you can just keep going, you'll get there. Dealing with the frustrations is the hardest part, but it is so rewarding when you get past all that.
Just have to keep your eyes on the goal.
Yes.
So how would our audience buy a copy of your book?
They are available at both Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Okay. Is there any other outlets there, or would it just be in the bookstore online?
Right now they're just on the bookstores online. If you go to, I do know Barnes & Noble, if you go in, you can order it, like anything they have online, not just our books, but anything that they offer online. They do have a way to order it in store and pay for it there.
Okay.
So that's a great thing that Barnes & Noble offers.
Okay. And besides your 2 novels in the works, or 2 books rather, are there any other future projects that you have been collaborating on?
Well, with the chapter book, that one is hopefully going to be the start of a new series.
Okay.
So that's definitely the plan there. And then we do have a couple of stories that are written and a couple ideas for stories that aren't written yet as far as the children's picture books and everything. So we're just kind of playing it by ear and see where it goes.
That's very cool. Well, thank you both very much for coming in
Thank
today.
you.
And we wish you both great luck with your upcoming books. Please stay tuned for more Student Connections after this.
My favorite book because it's really funny and they go to different animals. It's my favorite book because it has lots of detail in it and really big words that I can come to learn.
I like the kids' National Geographics because there's a series of them and I get them in the mail and I really enjoy them. So.
My favorite book is Beezus and Ramona because it gives you a laugh and it's really funny about the two sisters and they go through things that real people go through. And I like reading because it makes you think about things you never thought about and it takes you on adventures.
I like it because it's like adventurous and it brings you to like different places.
My favorite book is Charlie Bone and the Castle of Mirrors. I like this book because it really takes you in the book and be the characters.
Just like the Air Force Thunderbird pilot I flew with, I have to make split-second decisions as a top fuel driver. Hi, I'm Brandon Bernstein, driver for Kenny Bernstein's 2010 Copart Lucas Oil Top Fuel Dragster. To make it in the NHRA, I've had to work hard, stay focused, and make smart decisions along the way. To reach your goals, you need to think straight, stay on track, and give your very best effort in everything you do. Make the right choices today and be ready for the challenges tomorrow. This message brought to you by the U.S. Air Force.
Half of young Americans can't locate economic powers like Japan and India. 20% can't even find the Pacific Ocean. Without geography, our children aren't ready for the world. Understanding connections between people and places is critical. So we created MyWonderfulWorld.org. Go there now for your free action kit. Help kids understand their world today so they can succeed in it tomorrow.
Welcome back to Student Connections. We just met Mr. and Mrs. Higgins, author and illustrator of We've Seen Santa and I Love the Changing Seasons. After visiting with the students at Gardens Elementary School, it was very nice of Mr. and Mrs. Higgins to dedicate their book, I Love the Changing Seasons, to the students after all the inspiration they had received from their visitation. Now we will meet with Mrs. Karen Curley, principal of Gardens Elementary School, and media specialist Cheryl Ferris. Hello and welcome back to Student Connections on M6, your hometown station. I'm Charlie Donahue and joined here with me is Mrs. Curley and Mrs. Ferris from Gardens Elementary School. Welcome ladies, thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you.
So after meeting with Mr. and Mrs. Higgins in our last segment, we understand that Gardens School has had a very special connection. How did the students originally connect?
Well, at the end of the last school year, Mrs. Curley came into the library and had a letter from Mrs. Higgins explaining their newest venture.
Okay.
So I tried several times to get on her website and I was unable to do so. So I took the letter home with me over the summer and wrote her back.
Okay.
And then she again emailed and then I could get onto her website and we chose a date and then re-chose a date because the book was a Christmas book and we wanted to tie it in with our Cookies with Santa event.
Okay, very nice.
So they came the day of our Cookies with Santa and then again came back that evening and had a booth and was able to sell autographed copies of their book.
Very cool. So Mrs. Ferris, after seeing and hearing the Higgins, have the students expressed more interest in reading?
Yes, the students were totally enthralled with their presentation. Mm-hmm. They had sophisticated questions that you wouldn't even believe like third graders would ask or even first or second graders. Mm-hmm. I did have a parent, when I showed her their newest book, she informed me that her daughter told her that she is writing a book and the little brother will be the illustrator.
Oh, wow.
So that made quite an impression on quite a few of our students.
Oh, wow. The night of Cookies with Santa, some of the children even brought their own drawing portfolios to share with Mr. Higgins. because he was so inspiring as well in regards to his illustrations.
Oh wow, that's so cool.
Just
how those little kids can be so
Yeah.
inspired by that. So Mrs. Curley, March is Reading Month and it's celebrated all over in Michigan, I'm sure you know. So how will Gardens be celebrating this year?
Well, Gardens will continue with having reading minutes and trying to increase how many minutes each child reads for the month of March. However, because of having the authors come to our school, our theme this year is readers are writers and writers are readers.
Very cool.
And so not only are our children going to be reading, but every student in our building will be writing their own book.
Oh, wow.
And we are going to have a special celebration next week in honor of all of the young authors of Gardens Elementary.
Oh, that's very nice. It's great, you know, to have an outlet of creativity for your students like that as well. Also, Mrs. Curley, has the school and staff set reading goals this month, and is there a reward for such goals?
Yes, there is. It's usually the last Friday of the month of March when we do the reward. It'll be something very simple, probably a popsicle or something like that. And especially with this warm weather, the kids will love that. But what we're going to do is we increased our reading minutes anywhere from 50 to 100 additional minutes. We do the Read to Succeed program at Gardens, so every month students are expected to read in reading logs, but for the month of March there's an increase anywhere from 50 to 100 minutes more for that month.
And even those little treats too, great to encourage students, you know, with whatever you can. Mrs. Ferris, do the students enjoy knowing more about the author and illustrators of the two books that Mr. and Mrs. Higgins brought to you?
They do. They, as we said before, they are truly inspired. And we have had another local author come as well, and the enthusiasm that they extended towards the Higgins, they also extended towards Mrs. Pollock. We've been very blessed this year to have such talent in our immediate area and have people willing to share that with our students. They truly appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, not all schools are able to do that, and it's great that we have that in our area. So, Mrs. Curley, has promoting reading through activities like meetings and authors and challenges impacted the long-term reading skills of the students?
Well, I think it always does. I think having your monthly goal, it just encourages children to read outside of the classroom. I think they, the more you read, the better you become a reader and a writer. That is a huge connection that is often overlooked, and that's why we chose to bring authors in to just have the students realize that those two skills are connected, and if you really want to write and be inspired, they read constantly, and they are usually influenced by books and authors.
That's very cool. So do you both anticipate any future reading opportunities or changes with new technology, such as on electronic devices in the future?
Oh, you could definitely.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I don't know for sure if the total switchover will happen in my time, but I see it. I work at the middle school also in their library, and 3 of their ELA classes wrote grants, and they have Kindles in their classrooms.
Oh, wow.
So it is coming. It is coming to Marysville.
So is the Accelerated Reader program still used to motivate students?
It is still used.
Okay.
Some classrooms more than others. It's a no pressure motivation though.
Correct.
It's not, you know.
It's a personal.
Yeah,
it's more personal.
Yes,
the students set their own kind of personal goals, and teachers will reward them if they reach so many points, but really it's it also does a quick comprehension check, and so many a times teachers will use it that way. And it's a very literal based type of comprehension. There's not in-depth questioning, but it's still a quick check, and that's really important for staff to be able to, it ties in with our reading program.
Yes.
We actually are able to take our reading program books and have accelerated tests for them, so we're able to use it that way.
Very nice. They're able to implement that in such a way. So has Library Chime changed for students from years past?
It has changed through the years, but we've adapted, and I think it's working quite well. It's wonderful that one of our board goals this year is actually increase literacy K through 12. And it's been fun to be part of that and using it in our library system. The best part about my job is making a connection with children and helping them find something they really enjoy reading. Because if you don't like to read, you're not reading something that you're interested in.
Yes, 'cause there's always something for somebody
There
out there.
is.
So, Mrs. Ferris, how do you determine what new books you purchase for the library?
Well, it's really extensive. I think people think you look like at a book order form and just do check marks. It's really not the case. I spend quite a lot of time. I go online, I look at bestseller lists, I look at award winners. And surprisingly, one of my most successful ways to buy books is by student request and recommendation.
And teacher. Yeah, staff has asked as well.
Right, and but the students, they always want to read what their friends are reading, and that is really the big draw. So if, like you said, you liked it, your friends at elementary or middle school would be like, oh, I want to read it too.
That's very cool too.
Yeah,
they're able to incorporate the kids in that decision.
And the kids, if they're excited about it and really like it, it's word of mouth. That's your best advertisement. So
it's very cool.
Yeah.
So besides buying new books, does the school accept donations of gently used books from the community?
Absolutely. I think it's always important that we have a nice variety for students to choose from, and it's always nice to have new material for them to look at.
We've been very fortunate. We have very strong parent support within our building. We actually are having a used book sale right now at this time in our building because it was a 5th grade fundraiser that they are doing for a field trip that's coming up. So we have the used book. We had parents, we put in requests if parents wanted to bring in gently used books because of our new implementation of a reading program that is called Daily 5, in which there are book bins within all of the classrooms where children select from the book bins to create their own specialized bag of books for the week that they're going to read within the classroom. And we just cannot thank our parents enough. We have a very strong parental
Including
support.
our PTO organization.
Absolutely.
They are
very nice.
They're very supportive of the library and of all the efforts that we do for reading at our school.
That's great.
We get a lot of money for our library through our Scholastic Book Fairs that are put on from our PTO. We have 2 a year, and Miss Ferris gets
That's fun.
very hefty vouchers from the Scholastic Book Company because of those book fairs.
That's
so
really
it's exciting.
Great. It's so nice to hear about all that. Well, thank you both very much for coming in today and sharing more about Garden's special connection with reading.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back with more right after this.
My favorite book is The Changing Seasons by Tiffany A. Higgins, illustrated by Clark L. Higgins. This book is special because the people who wrote this book came to our school to visit us. I enjoyed the author visit because it really inspired me, so I decided to write a book. And my brother Derek is going to be the illustrator.
We hope you have enjoyed meeting Mr. and Mrs. Higgins and get a chance to take a look at their new book, I Love the Changing Seasons. I know you will also wish our Garden School students the best of luck reading this March's Reading Month and meeting their goals. Be sure to join us again next time on M6, your hometown station.